For question 5, we are once again asked to have a look at the credit card data. This time we're looking at the extended data file, and we're asked to go through and complete some tasks. Part A, we have to work out the correlation between interest rate and annual fee, and we have to do that firstly for all cards, then only for cards with rewards, as well as only cards without rewards. So we have to go through that correlation calculation in several parts. In part B, we have to create 2 or more scatter plots to show what we've been looking at in part A, and then do a bit of a summary for part C. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll start off with our scatter plot for the interest rate and annual fee. Now, we're trying to see whether interest rate depends on annual fee. So that means annual fee is going to be X and interest rate is going to be Y. Now, when we make scatter plots, if I just clicked on, say, the interest rate and the annual fee columns, because interest rate is on the left, by default, Excel would take that to be our X variable, whereas we in fact want it around the other way. We want it to be Y. So we can go into the actual select data option of Excel and specify which is X and which is Y. But another easy way to deal with this issue is to actually just cut that entire interest rate column, paste it back on the right. We can now select annual fee and interest rate. We can go into Insert, Scatter, select a scatter plot, and it's completed the scatter plot with the variables the right way around. Now we will do a bit of formatting here. We don't need a legend for this chart because we do have only the one series of bivariate data. We want to have a nicer title, so let's just change that to something like Comparison of Annual Fee and Interest Rate. Now it's a bit large, so I'm also going to just make the font a bit smaller, and I want to go in and put in some labels. So for the horizontal axis, this is going to be annual fee, and that's in dollars, and for my vertical axis, that's going to be the interest rate, so I can add that in. And of course that's as a percentage. So we've completed the scatter plot. We're seeing a little bit of a trend here, but in terms of saying, okay, well, for different types of annual fees, is there a particular trend to the interest rate? It does look a little bit like as annual fee gets higher, interest rate gets higher, but if we look to some of these low annual fees, sort of $50 or even no annual fee, we see that in fact there are the full range of interest rates occurring. So that's really suggestive that the relationship, if any, is quite weak based on the data overall. Now we can confirm that by working out correlation, because that will tell us both strength and direction. And look, this is quite a nice way to go about it, because you can actually look visually at the scatter plot, think about what you're seeing, but then use the correlation. Now the only other thing to be a little bit conscious of here is that the trend, I mean, let's just put the trend line on, that's the easiest way. I'll say close. Because we've got such a range of rates for those lower annual fees, it's not as linear as we would like it to be. So that could have an impact on our correlation as well. So let's work it out. So I'll do equals correl, open my brackets. Now I have to put in my data. So I have annual fee, and that's going from E2 to E313, and then I have my interest rate, which goes from I2 to I313, and I'll close my brackets, and it calculates the correlation for me. Now that is the correlation. I'll just put in some headings. So this is correlation, and this is for all of the data. Okay, now certainly in looking at that, it's not as linear as I would like, and it does suggest that, you know, when we're seeing such a range of rates for those particular levels of annual fee, I mean, you look at no annual fee, we've got from sort of very low to very high. So that is suggesting that maybe there's more going on here than what we're seeing in that correlation figure. Correlation is just a formula. It's saying 0.375708, so if we round that off 0.38, saying we've got moderate positive correlation, but we can certainly do a little bit more with that here. And the next part of the question suggests a way to do that. So what we're wanting to do now is work out correlation for just the cards with rewards and then without rewards. So we might in fact start with the scatter plot again, and the idea is we've got this scatter plot with all the cards. What we want to do is distinguish between which points belong to cards with rewards and which points belong to cards without rewards. So we're going to have to use that column F with our reward information. Now I'm going to leave this scatter plot and actually make a new one so that we can compare. So I'll just pop that out of the way. The rewards column has already been sorted. We've got all the no cards and then all the yes cards. So what we want to do is we want to make another scatter plot. So I'm going to block on the annual fees, but I'm going to use that rewards column as an indicator, and I'm only going to make a scatter plot initially with just the no reward. So I'll go down to where the nose finishes and I'll block on both the fees and the interest rates that correspond to just that subset of the credit cards. Now I'll insert a scatter plot, and what we get is we get some of the points from the original scatter plot, but not all of them. And that's because these are just the cards without rewards. Now, we'll worry about formatting in a moment. We're certainly getting a different trend. And I mean, in some ways, if I put in a trend line, say close, well, in fact, it's slightly negative and it's very weak. So what we can do is we can work out the correlation for just those no rewards cards. And we do that by again using the Correll function, but in a similar way to what we did for the scatter plot. We just use the annual fees belonging to the cards without rewards. So we use that rewards column as our indicator. We stop when the no's stop, and we just get that subset of the data. Now I'll hit enter. It does the calculation. In fact, let's just round these off to 2 decimal places as well. We've got negative 0.05, so we'd already seen the negative trend. It's very weak, close to 0. So this is suggesting that, okay, if a card doesn't have rewards, that the relationship between annual fee and interest rate is very weak. Now, what about the cards with rewards? Well, we could just make a separate scatter plot, but it's really nice to in fact put these on the one chart. So I'm going to click back on my scatter plot, and I'm going to go into the chart design, and there's a button called select data. Now if I go into that, you can see that there's one series of data in there already, and in fact I'm going to edit that and I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to say no rewards. Say OK, so that adds it to the legend. Now I'm going to add a series, and I'm going to add a series for the rewards cards. And I can say the X's I want, and I'm going to scan down, and I'm going to take the annual fees for the yes cards, and I'm going to take the Y's for just the yes cards. Say OK. We've now got 2 series. Say OK again. I'm going to have a look at my chart. And you can see it's actually put the rewards on as a different colour. So we've got our original scatter plot, but it is broken up into two colours based on the different cards. And if I add a trend line in, you can see that I've got a positive relationship. What about the strength? Well, let's work it out with correlation. Rewards, say equals corral. Go down, use just the yes cards. Finish that off with the interest rates for just the yes cards. Hit enter. We'll just round that one off too. So we've got a positive relationship. It's moderate, only just moderate, but certainly what we're seeing for those rewards cards where there is somewhat of a trend is very different to what we see for cards without reward. So, okay, overall, we could say something like the results show that there is a significant difference between credit cards with and without rewards. Overall, correlation indicated that there was a moderate positive relationship between annual fee and interest rate, which is pretty much saying the higher the annual fee, the higher the interest rate. This result is somewhat surprising. As a consumer, we may have expected a negative correlation. It is important to note, however, that correlation does not necessarily equate to causation, and hence there may be another factor to explain this relationship, which, if we consider the results for cards with and without rewards, we see a different result. For rewards cards, correlation again indicates that there is a moderate positive relationship. However, for non-reward cards, correlation indicates almost no relationship and slightly negative, if any. This further analysis suggests that for non-reward cards there is genuinely no relationship, but for rewards cards we can suggest that correlation does an indication and that this unexpected result may be attributed to other reasons. So, for example, the rewards correlation may be the result of popularity of these cards. So, for example, maybe institutions have found rewards cards so popular with customers that they're still able to charge a higher annual fee. We don't know, we don't have more data, but that's certainly something that we can speculate on based on the trends we're seeing.